What's up, guys? Got a quick video for you today. Today I'll be going over some of the biggest UFC fights to never actually happen in recent history. We'll have a few super fights as well as one fight that isn't exactly a super fight, but I was really excited to see happen potentially. The requirements for this video are the fights either had to have been scheduled and canceled, rumored to happen but not actually happen, or make sense given the title picture at the time, but never actually follow through. For the first fight in this video, and probably the most obvious one, we have Jones versus Aspinall. Jones became the heavyweight champ after beating Cyril Gane for the vacant heavyweight belt after Ngannou left the UFC. Aspinall became the interim champ after Jones suffered an injury. Aspinall beat Sergey Pavlovich for the interim belt. Now, these two could have fought this year. They could have fought November of last year when Jones fought Stipe. That defense was pretty unnecessary, but Jones, in many people's eyes, mine included, he saw the threat of Aspinall. Aspinall with, at the time, 4 first-round finishes over top contenders. Aspinall's a beast. There's no denying that. Jones saw that, and he didn't want to tarnish his legacy. You know, Jones is a very egotistical guy. He um he wanted to go down as having the quote unquote undefeated record. I mean, his only loss in the UFC was using the 12-6 elbow, something that's legal now. I think that Jones wanted to preserve his record. I mean, they say he asked for $30 million, knowing that the UFC wouldn't give it to him. But then Joe Rogan came out and said that the UFC was actually willing to give Jones the 30 million, which is wild. I mean, Ilya only made 1 million after beating, or maybe 1.5 million after beating Oliveira this year, and Ilya's one of the biggest UFC fighters of all time. So it's crazy that to think that the UFC would give Jones 30 million. But this is a fight that many fans, myself included, would have loved to see happen. I mean, Jones is one of the most dominant and aggressive, vicious fighters of all time. He said to DC, "I will beat you. I will use the most malicious and vicious tactics known to man. You will not be able to stop me." I mean, that's just the type of fighter Jones is. Aspinall, he's a beast. He's a freak of nature. Many guys in heavyweight aren't nearly as athletic as him. He has plenty of first round finishes. This fight, I don't know how it would have went. I mean, Jones is clearly not 33, so please ignore this picture that I found on Google. But I think that Jones would have resorted to the wrestling, obviously, but Aspinall he has plenty of submissions, good jiu-jitsu defense, good or wrestling defense, good jiu-jitsu. Aspinall's a beast. I think that Jones really saw the threat in Aspinall and knew that he could have lost, so he didn't take the fight, but we'll never know how this fight would have gone. And of course, before Jones ducked Aspinall, there was Francis the Predator Ngannou, one of the baddest men on the planet. I think that Jones knew that if there was anybody ever in UFC history that could have knocked him out, it would be Ngannou. Ngannou has more power than a rhino. I mean, this guy, people always talk about how scary it'd be or how much money that they'd need to take to get a punch from, left hook from Pereira. I would rather take 10 left hooks from Pereira than a single overhand from Ngannou. I mean, Ngannou is an absolute monster. Jones knows that. That's why he ducked him. Ngannou, he wanted to be paid more, and who doesn't? Every UFC fighter complains about the pay, and especially when you compare it to boxing money, it makes sense. I mean, the biggest UFC fighters don't make nearly what guys say in the lower top 10 of boxing make. So I understand why Ngannou left the UFC, but Jones definitely used that as an excuse. You know, he waited till Ngannou left before he came back and fought for the heavyweight belt and became the two-division champion. I mean, had this fight happened, I'm 50-50 on Jones versus Aspinall. I mean, I think Aspinall would beat Jones at the time. However, I wouldn't be surprised if Jones pulled it off, but I think if Jones fought Ngannou when Ngannou was still the heavyweight champion, there's no way on earth that Ngannou wouldn't have laid Jones out. I mean, even Derek Lewis, who has the most knockouts in UFC history, was scared to stand in the pocket and bang with Ngannou because these guys know that all it takes is one hit to end things. Most heavyweight fighters don't even resort to wrestling, jiu-jitsu. They just go in there and they throw those monstrous overhands, those powerful hooks. And Jones knows that no matter how good he is at wrestling, no matter how good his wrestling defense is, his BJJ, his calf kicks, there is nothing you can do to strengthen your chin. One hit from Ngannou and your career is over. Another UFC super fight that never happened you absolutely have to mention is Khabib versus Ferguson. I mean, at the time, lightweight was a mess. Conor was the undisputed champion, was super inactive, got the belt taken from him. Tony went on to become the interim champion. Khabib was supposed to fight Tony for the undisputed belt. Then Tony tore his LCL tripping over a cable, a wire or something backstage. Then Khabib was supposed to fight Holloway. Holloway couldn't fight him because the doctors didn't clear him because of his weight cut. He was too dehydrated or something. Then Khabib went on to beat Al Iaquinta, who never did anything after fighting for the belt. Khabib became the undisputed champion. Then Tony and Khabib were supposed to fight 3 times after that. Never did once. This is one of the biggest what ifs in UFC history just because even though most people, I would assume, think that Khabib would win, I mean, Khabib beat, if we're using MMA math, Khabib beat Gaethje decisively, who beat Tony decisive. I mean, it was a finish, so you can't argue it wasn't decisive, but if we're using MMA math, Khabib beat Gaethje, who beat Ferguson. Ferguson after that went on to have the longest losing streak in UFC history. Um, Khabib, despite what I may think about who would have won, this would have been an amazing fight. I mean, Khabib at the time was the greatest grappler in the division. Tony was also an amazing grappler. It would have been nice to see these two go at it. But by today's standards, people would have said, stand them up. Nobody likes to see wrestling dominance in the UFC fights anymore. But this is a complete contrast of personalities. Tony is the most random person on earth, just says whatever he wants, does whatever he wants. There's no rhyme or reason to him. Khabib is methodical, he's calm, calculated, pretty chill dude. I mean, th- Tony was getting under Khabib's skin. It was funny to see him get out of character. I mean, not nearly as much as McGregor did, but this would have been a great fight to see just because when these two were going at it in the press conferences, it was pure magic. I mean, it was amazing watching them go, like to rewatch and see them go at it. It would have been nice to see them in the actual octagon. I mean, Ferguson would have taken every punch, every kick Khabib could throw. Khabib would have to resort to his wrestling. It'd be amazing to see how Tony stands up to Khabib's grappling, the greatest in the division and possibly the UFC as a whole at the time. I mean, this is truly one of the biggest robberies in UFC history. Robbery not in the sense of a bad decision, but what fans missed out on. And now for a UFC fight that I don't consider a super fight, but I would have loved to see. We have Gaethje versus Poirier 3. I mean, these are two of my favorite fighters. These guys go in there, they walk in pristine, come out bloody, bruised, battered. They leave everything on the canvas. When they go in the octagon, it's pure domination, pure war every single time. These guys do what Sean Strickland says he's going to do. I mean, I can't name a single boring Gaethje or Poirier fight. I know Gaethje turned down the fight because he said that it didn't do anything for him getting a title shot, and he didn't want either of their families to be saddened by the result. I understand that, but this fight would have made way more sense than made more sense than Poirier versus Holloway 3. I mean, Poirier was already up 2-0 against Holloway, and Holloway is already he's still in title contention. I think he has a more valid claim for the lightweight title fight than Gaethje does. So I would have loved to see these two go at it. A definitive end to this trilogy. I think that it would be a solid toss up considering both lost to Holloway recently. I mean, both are past their primes, but it would have been an absolutely amazing fight to watch. Win or lose, I would have loved to see the results. Either fighter. I mean, it sucks. It's like trying to choose your favorite kid. These guys. This is a fight that I would have loved to see. I know it doesn't do much for the UFC as a whole or for the title picture, but this fight it could sell out any arena, I think, if you had these two go at it. This fight could definitely headline any pay-per-view. Maybe not pay-per-view, but any fight night. It could be the co-main of any pay-per-view. This is just an absolute brawl to see. I mean, these guys are already 1-1. It would have been so nice to have a definitive end to this trilogy. And finally, the last fight I'm going to mention is GSP versus Anderson Silva. Two of the greatest fighters to ever do it. I mean, you'd be hard pressed to find someone who doesn't have either of these guys or both on their UFC Mount Rushmore. Two double champions, two of the baddest guys in the sport. GSP is one of the best grapplers of all time. Silva, he's one of the most well-rounded fighters of all time. Would have been nice to see how Silva would do against GSP's grappling, how GSP would do against Silva's striking and grappling. This would have been a very high IQ fight, I think. I think they might have fought a little timid, to be honest. I mean, GSP is not he's not a hesitant fighter, but he's very smart. He's very methodical. I think it would have been a better version of like Ngannou versus Derek Lewis, where both were kind of, they had a lot of respect for the other fighters. They weren't rushing into anything, no pun intended. Um, I think that this fight, it would be a toned down version of like Islam versus Ilya. I mean, not as much of a contrast stylistically. Islam is way more dominant grappler, while Ilya, despite having a BJJ black belt, is seen as one of the most dominant and best strikers in the UFC right now. But this fight, I think, it would have been one of the most. It would be up there with McGregor versus Khabib. I mean, we would if either of these guys beat the other, they would go hands down as the best of all time as of right now. I mean, there are a few fighters right now who I won't mention that are in contention for that spot, but these guys are already goats in their own right. Anderson Silva did stick around a little bit too long, kind of tainted his reputation with that, but to see these guys go at it would have been amazing. I mean, could have headlined any pay-per-view, any fight night. Obviously, it'd be a pay-per-view, but it could have sold out any arena. I mean, this would have been one of the best fights in UFC history. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Let me know any video ideas, any fights that you think I should have included, and I'll catch you in the next one.